Hello, my name is Abigail.
My name is Kalliopi.
Thank you for tuning into this month's episode of Life as A. Today, we'll be talking to Chris Fenn, who is a tour manager.
So tell us about your job, Chris.
Well, that's a rather broad question, but in short, I help touring musicians with logistics, and that being everything from hotel accommodations and arrangements to travel arrangements and getting to and from the shows and overseeing what's going on at the shows when they perform.
All right.
Basically everything from the time they leave home on tour until they return home. So planning outings, meals, press related stuff, all of that stuff.
What does your job look like day to day, kind of like on a schedule?
It varies depending on who I'm working with, but it's typically the days are long, and it's kind of an all-encompassing, all-day. Need to be available constantly, so there's not really time off or vacation days on tour. It's kind of the running joke with tour managers that there aren't days off, they're just non-show days. So, and what that refers to, of course, is obviously when a band or artist is on tour, they don't have shows every day of the week, but generally speaking, tour managers end up being busy even on the non-show days because there's press going on or dinner with people from the record label or, et cetera, et cetera.
And what are some of the musicians and bands that you work for or tour for?
There's been a wide variety, but the first band that I ever tour managed was the Offspring. And I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that's like a Southern California poppy punk band, I guess you'd say. And they've been a band for a very long time. I worked with the Offspring, and then that led to other endeavors with most recently Jeff Beck, the English guitar player, and Dead and Company, with the surviving members of the Grateful Dead and John Mayer. And then that led to working with Bob Weir and the Wolf Brothers. So I've sort of turned into Grateful Dead world for the past 5 years or so.
Oh, wow.
That's really cool.
Grateful Dead and extended family.
Nice.
Very
and
fortunate.
Go on.
I said I'm very fortunate to work with such great people who also happen to be legendary artists.
So what is it like working with these artists? Do you get to like form personal connections with them as well?
I feel lucky because that's been the case with the artists I've worked with. Like, we have become good friends. I mean, of course, it's still it's still a working relationship, but it's definitely blossomed into friendships, both with the Dead and Company and Bob Weir teams, and then with Jeff Beck. It's nice.
And how did you really start this? Your career, of course.
Sort of a long tangle. I went to high school with the members of the band No Doubt, and they were a band way back when we were in high school in the 80s, and we were all friends during that time frame. Then we all went to college together, and of course nobody thought that there was any hope of a future in music or rock and roll or anything of that nature. So they were doing the band and we were going to college, and then slowly they no doubt began to have success nationally, and then ultimately, of course, internationally, et cetera, et cetera. And they asked me for help in a very random way. Actually, they had a PO box. This was back before the internet and before before the internet, so there wasn't any like online place to order merchandise or to send fan letters and et cetera, et cetera. You actually had to write a letter and send. If you wanted to write to Gwen Stefani, you had to write a letter, put a stamp on it, and send it to her. And
Oh,
the
so you
PO
worked
box,
with Gwen Stefani? Sorry for interrupting.
no. That's how I started. And like I said, we all grew up together, and our parents lived near one another, and all of that. So it just so happens that my parents' house was right down the street from where No Doubt's PO box was. And when things started going really well for them, the post office was getting too much mail on a daily basis. So like literally crates and crates of mail every day of
Oh,
people
wow.
writing letters and ordering t-shirts and whatever. And we were just all friends, and they were on tour, and they said, hey, would you, if we give you the keys to the PO box, would you go by every day and pick up the mail and take it to your house and keep it, and we'll figure out what to do with t-shirt orders and so on and so forth when we get home from tour. So I did that, and it was really busy. And when I wasn't around, my parents would go get their mail, and everything ended up getting stored at my parents' house. And eventually it turned into a situation where they were so busy that they're like, why don't you quit your job and come work for us? And so I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, so I worked for them for a number of years, and I actually lived with different members of the group for 10 years, and we're all extremely close. And through working for them, I got a job at their management company, and their manager also managed a bunch of different artists. So through their manager, I met a bunch of different artists that I've maintained relationships with, and that's how the Offspring thing happened. And anyway, like anything, I guess I feel lucky. It's a long, tangled story that's much more involved, but I won't bore you with that. But it's
No, it sounds really fascinating.
But yeah, that
it
is really
is, and I'm
fascinating.
fortunate to somehow have grown up with people that have managed to do really well in rock music, which is not an easy thing to do. So
Yeah, like I've definitely heard of those names.
totally.
So, what is the most challenging aspect of what you do, and what is the most rewarding part?
I think the most rewarding part is, it's a very it's rewarding to see a tour, and specifically a show, go off well and have there be no hiccups as far as transportation to the gig and from the gig, and getting the artist friends back to see them after the show, and all of that stuff. It's very when it goes smoothly, it's rewarding to see everybody happy and the crowd happy at the end of the night. And obviously I'm not performing, but it just adds to the whole sense of accomplishment. The challenging part, I guess, would be that it's very, no day is and this is another great part about it, is no day is the same. So there are always different twists and turns in the day, and things that you didn't see coming, and so on and so forth. So you definitely have to be prepared and willing to go with the flow, I guess you would say, more than, and to anticipate possible problems. By that, I mean every little thing from, if you're taking an artist to dinner, if an artist is going out to dinner and he or she says, oh, make me a reservation here or there, then you need to think ahead to like, okay, well, if it's somebody that's super recognizable, we need to figure out a way that that they don't seat him or her right at the entry to the restaurant or in a high traffic area where people are going to be walking by asking for photos and autographs all night. And yeah, I mean, that's just one rather random example, but you get the gist, I would
Yeah.
assume.
I didn't realize, like, you also have to work with organizing their personal accommodations as well,
Yeah,
like hotels or.
yeah, yeah. A lot of what I do, I think, at least the way I do it, strays over into some personal assistant type work.
Oh wow.
So, which, I mean, everybody has their different style of doing this, but um, it's kind of hard to, the lines get blurred a little bit in that area.
Hmm.
And fortunately, I like everyone. I've been lucky enough to really like everybody that I work with and enjoy their company, and so it definitely turns into a more all-encompassing personal assistant type situation, oftentimes.
And I guess going off of that idea, what is something that, most people wouldn't know about your job, something that people would be surprised about?
Uh, I would say maybe that.
I mean, hey, I was surprised by that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
yeah, I would think that. Yeah, I would think that maybe that about how much of it strays off into a personal assistant type situation. When you're tour managing, it's not really like the day ever has a beginning or an end. You're constantly available, which is to say that it's not like when the day ends, I turn off my phone or turn the ringer off. I need to be available at whatever hour for
Oh
whatever
wow.
reason, whether it's fun or So I
Yeah.
think that's probably the most challenging and something that most people don't uh, factor into, or they wouldn't guess that that's how it is. Like for instance, I
Yeah.
have it's rather random, but there's somebody that I traveled with extensively for a number of years, and I still get calls from this person in a great way because we maintained a friendship. But every now and then he's called me from Europe before at a specific hotel that we've always stayed at, and I wasn't with him, and he was like, "Can you remind me what I like to eat here?" Like, and he couldn't remember. He was like, "I always get the same thing, and I can't remember what it is." And of course, just through repetition and spending so much time with him, it's like, yeah, you like this, and
Oh wow.
uh, you know. And by the same token, I get calls from similar, from other people that I know really well that uh, that I may not even be working with them at the time, but they're like, "Hey, do you have my Apple ID? Or do you have the
Really?
password for my email? I lost it." And it's like, yeah, so it's that sort of involvement where you're like, yeah, 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 but
So, do you usually
Yeah.
have, I don't know what the right word is, but do you usually have multiple clients at once? I don't know if client's the word, but.
yeah, clients, I guess, would be the word. Well, it sort of depends. Yeah, I mean, most people do. Most people aren't lucky enough to work with just one artist. For me, for a while now, I kind of have been very lucky to uh, with the Dead and Company and Bob Weir and Wolf Bros situation, even though that's not the same artist, or those aren't the same bands. It's definitely within the same family, which is to say, I don't know how much you know about that world, but if Dead and Company is doing a show, then Bob Weir is a part of it. They're not doing a Dead and Company show without Bob Weir. And by the same token, when Bob Weir and Wolf Bros are doing a show, Dead and Company can't be doing shows. So it's worked out nicely for me because working with both of them, when Dead and Company aren't busy, I'm busy with Bob, and vice versa. So, but it does get tricky when I would say that would be a very challenging part of the job too, because you know you often have to choose. You often have to choose between Yeah, it's tough. It's been difficult because there are times when Dead and Company have been on tour, and Jeff Beck has decided that he wants to go um, on tour, and he'll call me and say, "Hey, let's go do this," and I've already committed to Dead and Company, and I have to say no, which is
Oh,
not easy because especially because in the case of Jeff and I, uh, we get along really well, and I really enjoy working with him. So it's difficult to tell somebody that you enjoy working with that you're unavailable.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
but oftentimes, in the case of Jeff, Jeff doesn't work very often. So people that have been touring as long as Jeff has, they know that people in my shoes need to be constantly working and generating income. And if Jeff's going to go, sometimes he'll go a year or more without working. He's very well aware that during that time frame, I need to go out and do what's right for me. So, sort of the nature of the job.
All right.
yeah, and like your job, it seems like there's a lot of high stress levels and challenging parts, even with the rewarding parts. But with COVID-19, how has it affected everything?
Oh, it's been absolutely devastating. Like there is just, I, it's been challenging to say the very least. I mean, there hasn't been any work going on at all, and we were in the middle of a Bob Weir and Wolf Brothers tour in March, and I believe March 11th was the last show that we did, and there were still more weeks to go on that tour, and then suddenly the COVID thing really flared up, and we flew home suddenly from Chicago, and that's really the last day that I've worked until now. I mean, there have been little things that I've taken care of on an administrative level, and little bits and bobs that I've done for, I've helped Bill Kreutzmann from the Dead with some personal matters during the, but it's terrible. It's terrible.
Mm.
And so I'm lucky because I'm not married and I don't have kids. So why I say I'm lucky because of that is I don't have a lot of, my expenses are low and I have been smart with my money. So for me, it's been more of a mental challenge than a financial one. And that's a luxury to be able to say that. But there's so many friends of mine that have had to resort to, getting jobs at Home Depot or whatever in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Chris, and
Uh,
thank you to our listeners who tuned in. And make sure to tune in next month for another episode of Life as a.